Good morning, students. Yesterday we started with the topic case taking. In that we discussed what is case, how we should proceed for the case taking, then how Dr. Hahnemann described the case taking and in which aphorism. In aphorism number 72, from aphorism number 72 up to aphorism number 104, Dr. Hahnemann explained the case taking in detail in his book Organon of Medicine. So it is explained in two parts or two division. The first division or in the first part, which contain aphorism from 72 to aphorism number 82. In that part there is classification of disease. What is how the disease are classified, and then from aphorism number 83 to aphorism number 104, Dr. Hahnemann he gave the proper part of case taking from aphorism number 83 onwards up to aphorism number 104. So in aphorism number 3, aphorism number 4, 5 and 6, Dr. Hahnemann give many guidelines to the physician while taking case. Which things he should do, which things he should not do while taking the case, as well as which prerequisites the physician should have before taking the case. So in those aphorisms, Dr. Hahnemann discussed about unprejudiced observer in aphorism number 6, that is, the physician should be unprejudiced. When the physician is unprejudiced, then and then only he can take the proper case. Then in aphorism number 5, he explained the causes of the disease. The exciting cause is the cause behind the acute disease, and the cause behind the chronic disease is fundamental cause. So in this way, what are the causes behind the acute disease as well as chronic disease, it was discussed by Dr. Hahnemann in aphorism number 5. So these are the things, and the case taking is the most important part while treating the patient. When we treat the patient, when we are going to cure the patient, when we want to give relief to the patient from his suffering, then our case taking should be proper. What is case taking? It is nothing but totality of alteration, totality of his symptoms, which we form the logically the portrait of the disease, and a well taken case is half cured. Then also we discuss the objective of the case taking. Many objectives of the case taking we discussed in yesterday's lecture. Then we discussed about the in which aphorism, about which thing Dr. Hahnemann give explanation in detail. So in which aphorism chronic case taking is there, it is from aphorism number 94 to 98. Acute case taking is from aphorism number 99 to 102. Then all these things, patient coming directly, if the patient coming directly to the physician, then what we should do, this is explained from aphorism number 83 to aphorism number 90. If the patient coming from other physician, then what we should do, it was explained from aphorism number 91 to aphorism number 93. In this way, Dr. Hahnemann he gave a very well explanation, very well clinical guidelines in his book Organon of Medicine. So, in what is now we start with the classification of disease, which is given by Dr. Hahnemann from aphorism number 72 onwards. So in aphorism number 72 and aphorism number 73, he give explanation about the acute disease. What is acute disease? The disease which is having sudden and violent onset, rapid course, but always terminate in a moderate time in recovery or death of a patient. In the causes behind the acute disease, we in the yesterday's lecture discussed that most of the time there are some exciting causes behind the acute disease, and if the course of the disease is violent, then it may cause much trouble to the patient, or if the violence is too much, then it may result into the death of the patient also. So many times acute disease, most of the time acute disease, it comes suddenly, it occupies its peak, the onset is sudden, violent and rapid course. It comes suddenly, fastly, terminate at a moderate time, and then the patient get recover, and if the violence is too much, then it may lead to death of the patient. So in aphorism number 72, what he has given, that rapid morbid processes of the abnormally deranged vital force, which have a tendency to finish their course more or less quickly, but always in a moderate time, these are termed acute disease. So when acute diseases are defined as diseases which begin suddenly, progress faster, run a definite course, and finally end with recovery or death. As we discussed in the previous slide, it is the same it was given in this slide. What is acute disease? Definition of the acute disease. And it is the morbid process which finish their course quickly, or it may turn into death. In acute condition, either there is fast recovery or death. They are caused by exciting cause or acute miasm, which is discussed in aphorism number 5. Exciting cause is defined as the cause which excite a disease condition, either acute disease or acute exacerbation in chronic disease. So what is exciting cause? The cause which excite, which aggravate the disease condition. Till we cannot remove that exciting cause, the patient never get relief. So the cause which increase the disease condition, which excite the disease condition, it is exciting cause, and always the exciting cause is behind, or acute miasm is behind the acute disease or acute exacerbation in chronic disease. Then in aphorism number 73, Dr. Hahnemann classifies the acute disease in aphorism number 73. He classified acute diseases into 3 groups or 3 different class, that is individual, acute disease, sporadic acute disease, or epidemic acute disease. Now one by one we see what is individual, what is sporadic, and what is epidemic acute disease. So individual acute disease is such kind of disease which attack human beings individually. So in individual acute disease, one individual is get affected. The disease is caused by excess in food or insufficient supply. There may be excess in, it was the example given that it may be the cause behind the disease, it may be excess of food or insufficiency of the food, insufficient supply. Severe physical impressions, that is chill, overheating, dissipation, etc. There may be severe physical impressions due to chill, heat, or dissipation. The patient's condition get worse. Or mental emotion, physical irritation, and strain. It may be mental emotion, it may be physical irritation, or it may be strain. They are transient explosion of latent sora, spontaneous return to its dormant state if acute disease were not of too violent character. Means the behind the acute disease there is acute miasm sora, and they are transient explosion of the latent sora. Spontaneously it returned to its dormant state if acute disease were not of too violent state. Means it starts suddenly, it reaches up to its peak, its moderate state, and then it declines as it starts suddenly, then in the same way it declines suddenly. If the disease is not too much violent in character. So this is the individual acute disease. In short, individual acute disease, it affects one individual, it affects one person. It may cause due to any excess or any insufficiency, any excess in food, or insufficiency of food, excess in temperature or very low temperature, both extremes, high or low, due to both extreme when the patient get or the person get affected. If there is extreme mental stress, physical irritation, then also it causes the sudden onset of disease, sudden acute condition. Then the second type is sporadic acute disease. Sporadic acute disease is that which attack several persons at the same time here and there sporadically. It does not attack one person or a group at the same place, but it attacks several person. The time is same, but the persons or group of persons, they may be from different area. So it is that which attack several persons at the same time here and there sporadically. It is caused by meteoric, climatic, or telluric influences such as soil, water, or injurious agents. So sporadic disease is the disease which is caused by any climatic changes, sudden climatic changes, the disease condition occur is nothing but a sporadic disease. Then influences soil, for example soil, water, such influences, it may cause any sort of disease or any injurious agent which cause a disease condition in several persons at the same time, then it is called as a sporadic disease. And the third type of acute disease, which was explained in aphorism number 73 by Dr. Hahnemann, is epidemic acute disease. You all know about epidemic disease. It attacks many persons with very similar suffering from the same cause. Many times we said that the epidemic come. So, what is epidemic disease? It attacks many persons and the cause is same, and the suffering or the symptoms after commencement of disease, they are also, most of the symptoms they are similar, and it is excited by calamities of war, inundation, famine, acute miasm, means it caused due to or it excited due to calamities of war. Then if there is flood in any area, then due to the flood, after flood, many persons they are suffering from skin disease, many persons they are suffering from GI infection, because there the water is they are not getting the proper water, the water supply it was not proper, so the persons or the people in that area, they are not getting the pure water, many impurities are there, so many persons they are suffering from GI infection due to flood or due to that dirty water, dirty weather, the many skin diseases the person is having. So these are the epidemic diseases due to flood. Then due to scarcity of food or due to starvation, the many persons they suffer from the same kind of disease. Many if the many in malnutrition or anemia in many in our society, the many person or many children, many females we found they are anemic, many malnourished children we found in the society. So this is due to the starvation and due to acute miasm. So epidemic diseases that attack many person with very similar suffering from the same cause. The cause is same, but it attack many persons and the suffering or the symptoms or the presentation of the disease, it is similar in epidemic acute disease. So this is about the acute disease and its types, which is explained by Dr. Hahnemann in aphorism number 72 and 73. In aphorism number 72, Dr. Hahnemann give the explanation, the definition about acute disease. What is acute disease? And in aphorism number 73, he gave the classification of acute disease. That is individual acute disease, sporadic acute disease, and epidemic acute disease. Then he explained what is individual, what is sporadic, and what is epidemic acute disease in aphorism number 73 in detail with examples. Then chronic disease. The chronic disease he explained in detail from aphorism number 74 up to aphorism number 82. So there are three types of chronic diseases. The first one is artificially produced, that is due to allopathic treatment. It is again of two types, that is curable and non-curable disease, which is given in aphorism number 74, 75 and 76. So the first type of chronic disease is artificially produced chronic disease. It is again of two types, curable and non-curable chronic disease. Most of the time artificially produced chronic disease means since a long time, though it is chronic disease, the patient was suffering since a long period and he was taking a medicine since a long period. So due to long duration intake of allopathic medicine, it may cause some new symptoms, and these are called as artificially produced chronic diseases. It may be curable or non-curable. It is explained in aphorism number 74, 75 and 76 in Organon of Medicine by Dr. Hahnemann. Then the second type of chronic disease is pseudo-chronic disease. The pseudo-chronic disease is explained in aphorism number 77. And the third type is true natural chronic disease, which is explained from aphorism number 78 to aphorism number 82. And the true natural chronic diseases, it is again of three main type, that is SORA, syphilis and psychosis. So there are three types of acute disease and three types of chronic disease. Which three types we discussed about acute disease? Individual, sporadic and epidemic. In the same way, in chronic diseases, there are also again three types: artificially produced chronic disease, pseudo-chronic disease and true natural chronic disease. So, artificially chronic disease is curable and non-curable, and true natural chronic disease is again of three subtypes, that is SORA, syphilis and psychosis. In this way, up to aphorism number 82, from aphorism number 72, Dr. Hahnemann discussed about the knowledge of disease. What is disease? How the disease is classified? How we understand the nature of the disease? Is it chronic? Is it acute? Then if it is acute, it is of which type? Then if it is chronic, it is of which type? So it was given very nicely from aphorism number 72 to aphorism number 82. Then in aphorism number 83, the demands or extra qualification of physician, it was given in aphorism number 83. Requisites according to Hahnemann, the demand or extra qualification of the physician. Which extra qualifications the physician should have before case taking, that was given. That is, the physician should be free from prejudice. That was also he explained very well in aphorism number 6. That is, the physician should be unprejudiced. And in aphorism number 83, in extra demand of physician, he again give importance to unprejudiced nature or unprejudiced mind of the physician. So the first extra qualification of the physician is the physician should be free from prejudice. Then he must have sound sense. The physician must have sound sense. He should be attentive. Then fidelity in tracing picture of the disease. He should faithfully record all deviations. So which things the physician should have, which extra qualifications physician should have? The first and most important qualification that the physician should be unprejudiced. He should be free from his prejudice. Then he must have sound sense, so that he must have a proper knowledge of disease, proper knowledge of person, how to take case. Then he should be attentive while taking the case, so that he never miss, or there are very less chances of missing anything while the patient narrate his symptoms. In this, and the physician, he should faithfully record all the deviations. He should not decide by his own that this deviation of the state of patient is important, or this deviation it is not important. He only faithfully note down all the symptoms, whatever narrated by the patient, narrated by the patient's relatives or attendants, whoever came with the patient. So these are the important demands or important extra qualifications of the patients, or demands from the patient before taking the case. That he should be free from prejudice, he should have sound sense, he should be attentive, and he should faithfully record all the deviations of the patient. Then from aphorism number 84 to aphorism number 86, means in aphorism number 84, 85 and 86. Then again aphorism number 88, 89 and 90. Dr. Hahnemann gave general guidelines about the case taking. What the physician should do while case taking. So it is also called as do's of the case taking. And this point or do's of the case taking is very important for your exam point of view also. Many times, what are the do's of the case taking, don'ts of the case taking, write down the difference between, or write down in detail do's of case taking, don'ts of case taking. These all questions it asked in the previous examination for short note as well as for 10-mark question also. So this is the important question, that is do's of the case taking, which was explained from aphorism number 84 to aphorism number 86, and aphorism number 88 to aphorism number 90 in Organon of Medicine. So which guidelines or which do's of the case taking Dr. Hahnemann gave the physician, we should learn one by one. In aphorism number 84, he gave some guidelines to the physician, that the physician should see, hear and remark what is unusual. He should observe the patient. The physician should observe the patient. The physician should note down each and everything, whatever the physician observe, whatever the patient narrate or told by the patient, whatever the information physician get from his relatives or his attendants. So while taking the case, he should note down all these things, but in that he should see, he should hear, and he should remark what is unusual, what is uncommon in this case, what is characteristic in this case. Write down everything told by patient and relative or attendant, retaining expression of patient. We must write down everything about the patient, about the information, whatever we get from patient, we get from relatives or attendant. Then we also note down how the expressions of the patient was, how the patient was expressing while narrating his symptoms. Because many times his expression only give many information about the patient, about the nature of the patient. Then keep silence. Don't interrupt while the patient was giving information. Avoid interruption unless patient wanders off to other matter. Don't interrupt the patient when he was giving information, when he was narrating his symptoms. But if in some patients they are too much talkative and they move from one point to other, they wander from one point to other, so at that time you interrupt the patient, you should disturb the talk in between. Otherwise, you should keep silence so that the patient himself he give his symptoms very properly. Before taking the case, you are going to note down each and everything told by the patient. So, before starting your case taking, you should request to the patient as well as his relatives to speak slowly so that you can able to write down everything. Because if the patient told his complaint very fastly, then you may miss, there are chances of missing any important thing. So we should not want to miss anything from the patient, any information from the patient. It may be useful or not useful, it may be uncommon or common, but we should never miss anything while taking the case. So before starting the case, ask the patient, told the patient and his relatives to narrate the complaints or to give the information slowly. Then while writing down the symptoms, when you are note down the symptoms, you are note down the information of the patient. Then for every circumstance, for every symptom, you should start with the fresh line. You begin fresh line. Then for arranging and completing each circumstance. Why we should begin each symptom on a fresh line? Because each symptom, it is having many times the person give each symptom as a complete symptom, and while taking the case we should try to complete each and every symptom. So if the patient he himself does not give the complete symptom, he only explain the location, sensation, he does not explain properly the modalities about the symptom, then if there is any associated complaint with the symptom, then without interruption, first we should take all the symptoms take out from the patient, and after the patient finish his information, then we should complete the symptom afterwards. So for completing each symptom or each circumstance afterwards, we should begin fresh line for every new circumstance or every new symptom. Then interrogation means in detail after finishing narration by patient, inquiry to get details about location, sensation, modality, concomitant, duration of complaint, causation, extension, time of occurrence. So we should, after the patient finish his history, he finish his narration about the disease condition, about his symptoms, then afterwards to complete each and every symptom, we should ask the patient about the things whatever which things are lacking in the symptom, that to complete it, that is location, sensation, modality or concomitant. Then also ask the patient about the duration of complaint, since how many days the complaint started, then causation if there are any, then extension if the symptoms they extend from one part to other or from above downward, below upward, then time of occurrence if there is any specific time of occurrence, then ask about that also specifically. So all these things, they are very small things, but they are too much important for our repertorization purpose, for our homeopathic approach to find out the similimum. So all these things are very important, and we should complete all the each and every symptom of the case in such way after the patient finish his narration without disturbing the patient. Then in aphorism number 87, in between do's, Dr. Hahnemann give the guideline about don'ts of case taking. What things or which things the physician should not do while taking the case? Which things the physician should not do? He should not interrogation. Don't ask leading question to avoid creation of false picture. So a physician must not frame his question so as to suggest the answer to the patient in yes or no. So we should never ask the patient the leading questions. What are the leading questions, or what is leading question? The question, when we ask any question, then if its answer is in one word, that is yes or no, then it may create a false picture of the disease, and the physician must not frame his questions so as to suggest the answer to the patient in yes or no. So don't ask leading questions to avoid creation of false picture. If we ask the patient anything and if he give answer yes or he give answer in no in one word, then we cannot get the detail of the symptom, or after asking the leading question, the patient, he may give answer yes or no. There may be, the answer may be wrong, or we cannot get from such leading question a detailed history about his suffering. So never ask any type of leading question while taking the case. Then, should not hurry a patient in his narrative. We never hurry the patient when the patient was narrating his symptom. We should give him his own time so that the patient, he explain in detail his symptoms. We never hurry the patient to finish his explanation. Then this point we discussed in the previous slide, that do not put leading questions which suggest an answer. We should never ask or never put leading question in which the patient give answer only in one word. Do not ask in haphazard manner. If the person was giving history, then it is okay. In which manner it is giving, it is not important, but we should only note down the symptoms. But if you are asking the questions, then you should follow the proper manner while asking the question. Don't ask in haphazard manner. In proper way you should ask the questions to the patient. Do not use complicated technical terms. So always use, while when you are talking to the patient, then always use simple language. Always use the language in which the patient feel comfortable. Never use complicated technical terms. Do not hide anything from the patient. So if you are examining patient, then first tell the patient what you are going to do. If you are asking some questions to the patient and the patient was not giving or not cooperating you, he was not giving answer properly, then explain the patient why you are taking in such way a detailed history, so that the patient cooperate you. So do not hide anything from the patient. Do not rely on patient's statement entirely. Many times, many persons, they never told bad things or negativities of themselves. They only told all the positive things about themselves, and they never give the bad emotions. They never express their bad feelings, because to maintain, or they doesn't want to express anything, or any some important, according to them something is important, so they does not express it, or they hide some symptoms. They many persons, they are over expressive, so the suffering is small, but their expression, their expressive way, the way of their expressing the symptoms, it is too exaggerate. So or they make the image, or they make the picture in front of the physician according to their own way. So while taking the case, do not only rely on the patient's statement entirely. We should cross check with the attendant or with the relative how the nature of the patient was, how he was behaving with the family members, with his friends, with in the society, then how he was intellectually, then how the his complaint started, how he was means how the severity of his disease, what are the his reaction when he was suffering from so and so disease, how was he before the disease starts, and what is the present state of the patient. So we should take all these conditions, all these states, the information about all these states from the attendants or relatives of the patients, whoever present with the patient. Not only we rely on the patient statement entirely. Then avoid questions along the line of remedy. Means if you think, yes, this patient is arsenic album or this patient is pulsatilla, then accordingly you never ask or you never formulate the question. You should never be prejudiced. You always be unprejudiced observer. So avoid questions along the line of remedy. If you are getting the many symptoms of pulsatilla, and so accordingly you ask some leading questions or some questions according to the remedy, according along the line of remedy, then this is the wrong method. Avoid questions along the line of remedy. Never ask alternating questions. We should never ask the alternating questions. Then never skip from one symptom to another at random. Randomly from one symptom to another we should never skip. We should go step by step from one symptom to another. After finishing one symptom, then we move towards the another symptom. In between we should not move from one symptom to another, then again towards the first symptom. This is not done. This should not done by the physician. Then never examine a lady in the absence of her relative or female nurse. Always there should be any attendant, any female attendant should be there when we are examining the female patient, because many times it may cause any medical legal issue. So always there should be any female attendant, any attendant or the relative of that lady or any female nurse while we examining the female patient. Always beware of temptations. If you have temptation to do anything, if the patient was narrating his symptom and you feel something or you want to laugh on his symptoms, but you should never do such things, because all his emotions, all his expressions, they are, the patient cannot afterwards give you the proper history. So always beware of temptations. So these are the don'ts of the case taking, which was explained in aphorism number 87 by Dr. Hahnemann, that don't ask any leading question to avoid the creation of false picture of the disease, because due to leading question we may get the false image of the disease. Then we should not hurry a patient in his narrative. when he was narrating the symptoms, when he was giving the information, then we should never hurry a patient. Do not put leading questions which suggest an answer. We should never put any sort of leading questions which suggest the answer of that question. Then do not ask in haphazard manner. Go in proper way. Don't move from one symptom to other symptom and then again on the first symptom. Do not use complicated technical terms. Always use the language which the patient can easily understood and the patient feel comfortable with that language. So always use that language and never use any type of complicated technical terms. Then do not hide anything from the patient. That what you are doing, how you are going to treat the patient, then what is the present state of disease of the patient. But at the same time, we should never rely only on the statement of the patient. We should also cross-check all the statements of the patient, all the mental, physical state of the patient from his relatives or his attendant. Then avoid questions along the line of remedy. We should never ask the questions according to the remedy. Then never ask alternating questions. Never skip from one symptom to another at random. Never examine a lady in the absence of her relative or a female nurse. Always there should be one attendant. It may be the relative of the lady or any female nurse while you examining the female patient, while you examining a lady. Always beware of temptations. So these are guidelines which we should not do while taking the case, or which the physician should never do while taking the case. And these guidelines we or the physician should follow while taking the case. In this way, in Organon, Dr. Hahnemann explained very well about all the clinical knowledge, about the practical knowledge in his Organon of Medicine, that which things we should do, which things we should not do, from case taking or how the physician should be, what is seek. So from all these things, from aphorism number 1st to his last aphorism, so he explained very well in each aphorism what the physician should do and what not to do while treating the patient in his clinic, which things he should follow and which things he should never do while treating the patient or while handling the patient while doing his proper allopathic practice. So in this way, Organon of Medicine is a very practical book, and as he explained the other topics in the same way, the case taking, which is very much important topic of the Organon, not only Organon, it is very much important from the point of homeopathy, because if our case taking is proper, then and then only we are going to able, or we are able to find out the similimum group of similimum, and from that group of similimum, group of medicine, we can reach towards the proper similimum. So the case taking is the most important part of the homeopathy while doing practice in homeopathy. Also the case taking is too much important. So he give the proper guidelines, what the physician should do, what the physician should not do while taking the case. So in aphorism number 87, he discussed very well about the don'ts of the case taking, what the physician should not do, which things the physician should not do while taking the case. In this way, you should not only remember but also follow in your clinic that which things you should never do while taking the case, while treating the patient. So in this way, today we discuss about what is acute disease, what is chronic disease, which are the subtypes of the acute disease, which are the subtypes of the chronic disease, how the knowledge of the disease, which is given from aphorism number 72 to 82 in detail. Then in aphorism number 83 onwards, the proper case taking part we started with the proper case taking part, and in that what the physician should do while taking the case, what the physician should not do while taking the case. This we discussed. We discussed only some points of do's of the do's of case taking, or general guidelines which the physician should do while taking the case. Some do's or some guidelines which the physician should do, we will discuss in the next lecture. So we also discussed in aphorism number 87 which don'ts or which guidelines Dr. Hahnemann given to the physician that the physician should not do which things while taking the case. So in this way, don'ts of the case taking, they are also given in aphorism number 87 by Dr. Hahnemann. So in the next lecture, we will discuss about the remaining points or remaining guidelines which the physician should do. It was given by Dr. Hahnemann from aphorism number 88, 89 and 90. So for today's lecture, remember all these things: acute disease classification, chronic disease classification, and some point of do's which the physician should or some guidelines which the physician should do while taking the case, and some guidelines which the physician never do while taking the case. Thank you.